Hey guys, my name is Raya. Today I wanted to walk through how I did my plus 17 Floodgate on my Shadowpan Brewmaster Monk. Unlike my other keys, this is actually a no comms pug. I'm not actually in communication here with the healer or our DPS, so this one I kind of had to freeball. In this key, I'll be walking through how I did my gathers, how I did some of the pulls, and how I orchestrated living on a Brewmaster Monk in a plus 17 without any support. Remember, in a lot of my other keys, I actually had a healer in comms with me, who's Clemens, who I normally play with, and have my DPS players available for stops. So I'm going to be showing you how I sustain myself on my own with only the passive healing from my Resto Shaman in this group, and as well kind of coordinate on my own terms how to deal with a pretty difficult key from a pug perspective. We are going to be skipping Bubbles in this route with our warrior, who's been communicated that prior to the dungeon. And as well, we have a couple things go wrong here in the route. I forget that I'm not on my BDH, and we have a couple problems with a Blood Warper pull and a gather, but I'm going to walk through this video of how we kind of collected everything, what I did to press and live, and kind of win the key. As I get this first pull here, I want to make sure I get threat on all these mobs, and I'm going to be using the Black Ox statue to do so. On this gather, I'm going to be pressing my unused trinket, which is my L3, my mud trinkets. I'll be tagging these with a keg smash, tagging these with a keg smash, hitting my weapons of order for the keg smash reset, and immediately hitting the shreddinator. In some of my videos, you'll see that I do a blackout combo with a breath of fire before I go into active rotation. The reason why I do this is I'm trying to get an additional 5% damage reduction from breath of fire before I start spamming Tiger's bombs. In this pull, I do hit Fort Brew right off the go, and I'm trying to see if I need to hit Dampen towards the end. In Bloodlust and with Fort Brew active, I don't really need a lot of support, and I can pretty much sustain myself on my own with just some of the passive healing from Resto Shaman. I do use Ring of Peace to give myself a little bit of space as this pack goes on to the end, and as these mobs run back in, I hit Dampen Harm. Remember, I'm not in communication with my healer, and I don't have an external, so I have to be pretty cozy here. I'd normally save Dampen Harm for the following pack in this dungeon, but I did decide to hit it here and slow down the next pull. As I don't have my healer in comms with me, I'm going to be pulling this Hyena 4-pack with the 2-pack up here into the Surveyor. Once I'm established a little bit, I am going to be pulling in the Architect over in the corner. Ideally, if we were on communication here, this is where I'd get, a little bit of support and call our kicks and assign them from the Surveyor on the other side of the map and chain this all in one. However, like I said, because we're not in comms, I'm taking this a little slow, feeding my regular rotation, which is keeping my keg smash on CD, using Blackout combo with Tiger's Palm or Breath of Fire depending if I need to for Charred Passions, and moving on. As this pull gets a little low and I'm sustained a little bit here, I go and pull into the Architect. I do take a little bit more time here as I'm a little bit concerned about my own well-being and I don't want to turn my back to these mobs. Ideally too, with this scaffolding I have Touch of Death, which I don't this time. On Brewmaster, it's amazing when you have Touch of Death or the scaffolding as you get that Architect down really quick. This next pull now is going to be a little bit slower as I pull this Architect with the Surveyor as I tag it with a Crackling Shade Lightning. As this mob comes in, I want to make sure I'm getting a little bit of threat with a keg smash, and my DK is going to be gripping them in. Ideally, this pull is all in one, but because of my blunder off the start, I just decided to break it up a little bit as we were kind of being safe here. I also decided that I'm going to be pulling these two divers in and chaining them. Once these two divers come in with my taunt, now we're fighting a couple more mobs, and it's going to split up and make the next pull easier for me, given that we don't have any communication. In these pulls, as opposed to playing on my BDH, the divers become a little bit more difficult as we don't have sigiled chains and silent sigil to group them in. With the Resto Shaman though, we do have an extra kick available in our team, which makes this a little bit easier. As we kill off this Architect, as I'm going to be trying to hit Touch of Death here I think in a second, we are going to be chaining the rest of these divers in and going up to the next Architect. I'll be pulling all these divers here, establishing a little bit of threat, watching for my first kick, and then I'll be going up into the Architect behind. You'll notice that in this route we are going to the Demolition DUO first, as I did want Lust on Big Mama. I feel like the Lust on Big Mama route is very, very good now and allows, especially too in a pug, to always get Bloodlust on that boss, which will speed it up quite a bit. Again, I don't have Touch of Death with the scaffolding, and I'm letting these divers come in from behind. If we were in communication here, I'd be calling kicks in each single one of the divers as they can never cast consecutively or at the same time. They will cast one by one on a short cooldown and share a kind of global lockout, meaning that you can pretty much alternate kicks on this with your entire team and kind of be okay. You'll notice that my healing sustain on the right hand side of my screen shows that I'm doing like pretty much self-sustained amount of healing on all of these pulls. I am getting passive healing from the Resto Shaman, I am getting Ancestral Vigor, which is awesome as it is increasing the health that I have active, and I have Earth Shield on, which does cover a little bit of that passive healing that I need to be able to sustain myself. Otherwise, in these pulls, there's nothing too deadly as there's no tank busters. You'll notice that I'm sitting on Dampen Harm, and I have Diffuse Magic in case I need to. This is a great magic in my opinion, or a great key for Diffuse Magic, as I seem to run it in a lot of my keys, as I really like having an on-use button as opposed to Yulon's teachings. I am hopping up the side here, I'm going to hit Tiger's Lust, and I'm going to be grouping this pull. I find this pull to be quite annoying from a threat perspective, so I take it a little bit slow. I Keg Smash, I Breath of Fire, and I go over here to pull in the Surveyor. Again, I don't have a DK in comms for me to get my grips organized, and now I'm going to be watching kicks in the Surveyor and putting some prio damage into the Shredder. Once our pull's established with my Breath of Fire, now I can start ramping as I'm waiting for my Weapons of Order to come up in 5 seconds. In this key, I did opt to actually finally drop G-Surge and run a little bit more defensively, as I am running Fort Brew Determination, which is going to allow my set bonus to be a little bit more potent and increase my stagger effectiveness by 15% while it's active. As my Weapons of Order is ramped, I hit Exploding Keg, and I'm back into my regular rotation. One thing that I wanted to debunk, which people keep coming into my Discord and asking about, is that Blackout Kick Tiger's Palm combo. I think maybe the theory crafting guides are basically telling everybody that you should be using every single Blackout Kick in a Tiger's Palm, and I'm just going to tell you straight up that that's absolute cap. In no way in a, maybe in a vacuum, but in practicality and Mythic Plus, you're not going to have every global and enough energy to constantly feed every single global into a Tiger's Palm, especially while using things like Keg Smash. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be feeding the occasional Blackout combo into Breath of Fire, as it's going to help your damage smoothing intake immensely, and it's not going to cost you any energy. As we finish off the Shredder, we are going to be going into the Demolition DUO. So far, there have been absolutely no hiccups this dungeon, and we've been doing an okay time at surviving. There's nothing too quirky about this boss, as Brew gets a very free time on tank busters this season in a lot of dungeons. If I were telling you that this was a VDH guide, I would really recommend for each one of the wall-ups to make sure that you're alternating something like Feldev or Firebrand. However, on Brewmaster, it doesn't really apply. You should be able to stagger every single one of these wall-ups, instantly purify it, and if you need to, hit a Celestial Brew, or if you're feeling like you're moving away from the mob a lot, just go ahead and hit the Dampen Harm or that Fort Brew. I am not running Ox Stance in this key, I know a lot of people have, but I still haven't had that tough of a time with some of these keys that I feel like I need Ox Stance. Where would I take Ox Stance? I think Ox Stance is actually really valuable in Big Mama, and if you are struggling a little bit with self-sustain, or feeling like you are just, a little bit behind on the Tank Buster ordinance of like making sure that you're either topped with a Vivify or Expel Harm before Tank Buster or not Purifies, Ox Stance is a great way for you to help stabilize on those pretty crazy, Tank Busters. And this might be one of the only keys I think I'd run it in. However, I still didn't think, even on plus 17, and again, like I said, this is a no-comms PUG, that I thought I needed it. Unfortunately, I don't have details active for the overall key or for the current damage on the key, and I think I tried to fix it here, but my details is stuck on dynamic overall. That's okay, as we don't have to really worry too much about my damage as a Brewmaster, as this guide is mostly going to be talking about gameplay. On this boss, you can see that I'm putting a lot of my Blackout combos into Tiger's Palm as I'm fighting one mob. I get walloped in the back, but I am okay. I go ahead and hit that Celestial Brew to make sure that I'm stabilized, and I'm back to slamming my single target rotation. After this boss, we are going to be going to Big Mama, which means that it's going to be my tank, healer, and DPS check of this dungeon. So you can see we end up having a little bit of an incident here, as my DPS do a very, very poor job of clearing the bombs. Luckily, even on this key level, you are able to live a bomb going off with some proper defensive planning. What do I mean by that? We press AMZ, we press personals, you can see that our DK has AMS active, our warrior presses Rallying Cry, and our druid hits Barkskin. A bomb going off on this boss is not the end of the world, however multiple of them are, and you should be doing your best as a tank to making sure that you're clearing as many bombs as you can. If the room is cleared, however, one trick to note is that you can just run the boss into the wall and make sure that your DPS have more uptime. You can see here that I'm on the bomb and I try to clear it, and it does get cleared by Bronze. As the boss health is, a little bit higher in Bronze's favor, I decide not to bring the two bosses together right away and slowly walk it over, as I'll be hitting Touch of Death here on Bronze in a moment, and the bosses should die almost exactly even. As this boss goes down, I'm going to be mounting up, letting my team do the RP of this dungeon, and moving over to Big Mama. So far so good, no deaths in place, no blunders, and I'm going to be showing you what I do to handle Big Mama as a Brewmaster. I do hit the weapon stockpile over on the left, making sure that we finish the RP, and now we're going to be waiting for this pad up here. After this boss, you're going to see our mistake that we made and how I worked on the fly to correct this. Remember, this is my first brew key in almost 3 weeks, as I haven't been playing brew at all. I've been really into VDH and Press Evoker, and I've been waiting for the gear buff patch, so I'm a little rusty on something. So mind you, as I walk through Big Mama, I'm going to walk you through some of the mistakes I made as well. We're going to be pulling these soldiers here into the boss, and I'll be para-ropping these inspectors away so they don't come in with us. Because we don't have a priest, those can usually be mind soothed, but I did not mind soothe them there. I am typing to my healer to Lust here in a second, even though he doesn't. And for every single one of these electrocutes, I want to make sure that I'm popping a defensive button. Right off the rip, as I am fighting 3 soldiers as well, I do go ahead and hit Fort Brew. It is your prerogative to always use short defensive CDs first and use the bigger ones later as they kind of come up. Meaning that my order of operations this fight is using Fort Brew on CD, waiting for those procs, using my on-use trinket and Diffuse Magic second, and my Dampen last. The reason why is Diffuse is exceptionally powerful on this fight, as it'll let you completely negate an Electro Crush with a 60% DR. I will look for the kick there, but I am dealing with these Electro Crushes as I hit that Diffuse Magic. You'll see that when I diffuse, even without Ox Stance, I'm basically taking nothing from the diffuse, and I'm able to stabilize myself really easily. As the phase starts, I Crackling Shade Lightning in these contractors as I need them for count, and I'm back to just blasting the boss. I am doing quite a bit of damage on Big Mama, and my prio damage is excellent. On this boss, I am also opting to hit Big Mama in this first phase during Bloodlust for boss prio damage, but as you'll see here as the fight goes on, I swap a little bit to the Mecha Drones and the other trash. I do hit Dampen Harm, and now you'll see that I am out of cooldowns for a little bit until my Ritual Mud Trinket comes up in 3 seconds. Remember, on every single one of these electrocutes, I'm going to want some sort of defensive. I do taunt in the Mecha Drone just to get the speed taunt in so that he's grouped and gathered, and I'm back to hitting Big Mama. I do get a Fort Brew proc right on the electrocute, which was insanely lucky, but I also did have that Ritual Mud Trinket active and rolling. Remember, in this key, Ritual Mud is insane because it's going to reduce the cooldown active on it every time you're taking a ticking dot damage, meaning that it comes up about every minute, maybe even every 45 seconds. Electrocute hits, and I'm in Fortifying Brew. Because of all the CDR I'm getting from Tiger's Palms and Keg Smash, my Fort Brew came up in just under 2 minutes, which is awesome. I'm now putting more damage into these Mecha Drones, as it looks like we didn't have a lot of damage this pull, and our baits were kind of nasty. The scariest part of this entire fight is getting that electrocute before the Jumpstart. Luckily on this one I did have Diffuse Magic, however if you don't have a big healing CD for the combination of Electrocute and Jumpstart, you need to make sure that you're in communication with your healer or have something like a health bot to survive. The problem is when that shield plus Jumpstart plus Electrocute happens is that you're not going to have a lot of mobs to sustain yourself from Black Ops orbs, and on top of that you're not going to have a lot of ability to take your healing away from your healer, as they need to heal up the group. You'll see there that I did use that Ritual Mud Trinket, and now I'm just keeping and alternating things like my Black Ox Brew and my Celestial Brew to kind of get through those electrocutes. This next electrocute is going to hurt a ton, as I don't have a defensive up at all for it because I fell behind from the tank buster in the phase. You'll see that even without Ox Stance, I was able to live okay, and now I'm just taking that Purify, watching that Vivify proc, and just slamming that Celestial Brew to kind of stabilize myself. Now that I am in weapons order, I'm going to be doing a lot of damage to clear up these adds, and I'll be hitting Exploding Keg here a little early. I hit Dampen Harm after the Electrocute there as I was rusty, and that was a mistake as it did bring me pretty low. But if I played better, I could have just used the Dampen Harm on the initial hit and been more than okay. I am now watching the Touch of Death on this Mechadrone if I need to hit it, and I do to go into the phase. Our Shaman goes down to the frontal right at the start of the Jumpstart, and I think that this is the key. What I could have been doing here to help stabilize my team a little bit is I could have thrown out a Vivify here if I really needed to, but again, I was kind of panicked and didn't really do anything to help. I think I could have definitely saved the Druid, and that was probably my mistake. It's unfortunate the Shaman went down at such an inconvenient time. We're now 413 into Big Mama, as you can see on my details meter in the bottom of my screen, and this boss needs to die ASAP. I did just commit Diffuse Magic to that Electric Rush, and I am stabilized dealing with the end of this boss. If you pull this boss out too far on this side, you can reset her, so making sure that you're keeping it as close as possible and making sure you're slamming boss damage is your imperative. I'm going to pause the video here and you guys are going to see the blunder I make really quick. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is I'm trying to pull these soldiers down and I hope that they're going to walk by the Blood Warper. In the middle of the fight, you might have noticed that I tried to jump and pull these, but I didn't have Chi Wave and I didn't place my Ox statue in time, which made it unable for me to be able to pull these soldiers. What happens next is unlucky. As these soldiers pull, I'm planning to bring these down into the next Bulver dungeon, but they do walk into the Blood Warper and social. What that now means is I can choose to die and potentially rip the key, or I choose to play the Blood Warper. Unfortunately, our healer is behind and I need to sustain myself immediately. I do hit that Fort Brew and I am slamming Vivify to keep me up. I find these Blood Warpers exceptionally difficult on Brewmaster as they deal a ton of oncoming healing absorb damage and as well deal these blood blasts that my DPS don't kick. The problem is Brew does not have enough self-sustain like VDH to deal with the Blood Warp and consecutive hits from soldiers. So what I recommend doing is making sure that for every one of those Blood Warper AoEs that you have something like Diffuse Magic, Dampen Harm, or a CC capability such as Leg Sweep or Ring of Peace to help you get distance on these Blood Warps. We have now pulled an entire extra pull in the dungeon for free, which means that I'm going to be breaking up the next pack. Originally, I had intended to play these Inspectors, these Snipers, and all the packs on the left of the screen with the triple Demolitionist pull, similar to how I do on my Vengeance Demon Hunter. However, we're not going to be doing that now as we don't need for count. In my head, after this pull is done, I'm going to need to be problem solving and I'm going to need to figure out what count I need to make sure that our team can still time this key. As I get into this pull, the easiest thing to do about this pull is once you're fighting a Sniper and a Demolitionist, all you need to do is stop the reload. You'll see here that when the reload's coming up, we are going to use an AoE CC. I used Leg Sweep on the first, and now I'm looking at using things like ROP, things like Thunderstorm from our team hopefully goes off here, and we do miss a reload completely. There's the Thunderstorm on the reload, and now the Demolitionist is about dead. This pack got a lot easier because I didn't have to play the other two Demolitionists, but if we did bring them all together, in a coordinated setting it's pretty easy, in a non-coordinated setting it's really hard. The next pull in the dungeon now is what I think to be maybe the hardest or second hardest pull in the entire key as a tank. I'm a little freaked out because I've only really done this pull on VDH, and like I said, I was pretty rusty in this video, and while I'm recording it, I'll walk you through what I do to make sure I live. I think like 5 times I say to myself, I'm dead, like straight up. So as I get in here, I'm building a little bit of threats, hoping that my Druid's Moonfires don't rip, and I'm going to be going to the end here. Hitting a Vivify proc on myself to stabilize, getting the first kick on this Blood Warper, rolling, and letting that RPG Demolitionist go off. Once this pack is in, I'm immediately going to be hitting Fort Brew to stabilize, and I'm going to be hitting Exploding Keg exceptionally early here to stabilize myself on threat as well. Remember that when Exploding Keg is active, all melee attacks on you are going to deal 99% less damage for the duration of Exploding Keg, which is 3 seconds. Meaning that you can actually use Exploding Keg during a Blood Warper cast to completely negate all the melee damage you take and stabilize yourself. The second Blood Warp comes out, I get a Fort Brew proc and Diffuse Magic, and I decide to hit Ring of Peace on these mobs so I can stabilize. Your healer should be including you in all of his healing ramps on this Blood Warper, and I need to make sure that this Blood Warper dies before the next set or I am cooked. I hit Dampen Harm to stabilize, I hit Vivify, and I'm looking at my health pot, which is coming up in 4 seconds. This pull is crazy, and I'm making sure that I can do anything I can to live here. I hit a paralysis on the reload to stop it, and now I'm just proxy kiting these mobs as I am very, very, very scared. Again, I hit Vivify, I hit Expel Harm, and now I'm just making sure that I can kite and sustain myself with things like Vivify, with things like Celestial Brew, and slamming that Black Ox Brew off cooldown. Playing without a reliable healer on Brewmaster in comms is very scary, but you know, as you can see, we made it work. This next pull is the Kelp, and I'm looking constantly at MDT to see what I still need in this pull. I think I need 2 little crab bombers, so I'm making sure that I start this Kelp pull off, get a little bit of threats, and then pull the Kelp in. A mistake I made here is I should have already hit Exploding Keg for threats. As you're going to see, I think our DK rips here in a second, our warrior does. So I hit Exploding Keg afterwards, I taunt, and now I'm saving my leg sweep to get stops when needed. Luckily, our team is on it, and we get that beam out, and now I'm looking to leg sweep for a stop on the Jettison Kelp. I end up leg sweeping, but we are actually DR'd due to Capacitor Totem and Shockwave, and now we're in a little bit of trouble. The Restorative Kelp can go off, meaning that if they do, they're going to heal up, but they can be purged. Luckily, it looks like our Shaman did take Purge, and luckily the Jettison Kelp aren't healing to full too hard. And now all I need to do is check MDT one more time to make sure that I have the appropriate count due to the Blood Warper incident. Our goal here is to get enough count in the dungeon to skip bubbles and only play the end of the key, which is about 77.68, I think. So as you'll see, these 2 crabs die. I quickly check MDT, and I'm like, okay, I need 1 more bombshell crab, but it's going to be at the end of our boss. Due to the Blood Warper incident, our timer is a little bit behind, and I'm a little bit worried about how this key is going to go. This is due to fighting that extra Blood Warper a lot slower, as we added an entire extra pull to the dungeon, and that took an entire minute. Not only a minute, but useful resources which we could have used to speed up the other pack and save for the other Blood Warper pull. As I'm fighting this boss, there's nothing really too much to talk about. Remember that Swampface's Tank Buster is on a 30-second CD, so that you can alternate pretty easy and have something for every single one of these Tank Busters. Running the Ritual Mud in this key is insane because you getting tethered by this vine is also going to reduce the cooldown of that Ritual Mud trinkets. As I talked about in Big Mama, you'll see I hit it here, and my health just doesn't move. I Purify, I hit Keg Smash, and I'm just feeding damage into those Tiger's bombs. Remember, for every one of these Swampface Tank Busters, which happen at the very end of the Awaken the Swamp, you want to make sure you press anything. Whether it be Dampen Harm, Fort Brew, or even a high stack Celestial Brew, you will and should be able to live this boss just even with a Celestial Brew, but you want to be safe enough that you're not causing your healer stress and that you're not pressing or that you're not just like dying straight up. There's absolutely no reason not to hit your tank defenses on this boss, so again, anytime you get that Swamp Crush, you are hitting something. Otherwise, in this fight, you're kind of a passenger on Brewmaster. You don't have Blessing of Spell Warding, or Sacrifice, or Darkness, so all you're pretty much doing this entire key is, if you really need to, you can throw to Vivify on your team, but you're just hitting that Blackout Kick, Tiger's Palm, Keg Smash over and over and over again until the boss dies. Remember, I do need to pull in 1 crab here, as due to our count error, I need to find a little bit of count to get through this dungeon. As the boss is at 35%, I'm starting to think here, what's the ideal time in which I pull in a crab? I remember in my head, I'm like, I think the crab has like 150 mil health, so I'm gonna wait a little bit longer and we're gonna even cleave the crab and the boss. The last thing I want to do is pull a random crab in, have it cleave down, explode, and kill us all at the end of Swampface. Remember as well, my healer is not in comms again, so it's going to be very hard for me to kind of try to tell him like, hey man, I just gotta pull in a crab for you and you have to heal this up during this boss fight. Also, disregard, I hit a random spinning crane kick there and I don't really understand why, but Anyway, as I pull in this grab, I'm hitting Saunts to kind of get it sped in. I'm making sure that I slam it with my keg smash. My Tiger's Palm is going to go into the boss, and we're going to be soft cleaving the crab. Remember, this wants to die after the boss dies, not before, as that crab explosion is going to hurt a ton, and we don't want to add added stress to our healer. As Swampface goes down, we have less than 9 minutes left in the key, and in my head, this might be a rip, but we can try our best, and I'm going to play really aggressive at the end to make sure that we can get this key down. The stupid thing about playing with brew in a no-com setting is that I don't have silent sigil or grip to kind of coordinate, and I can't really orchestrate kicks, so I'm going to have to do the best of my ability to make sure that my team can get through some of these Electricianer pulls at the end, and just going to use my kick where I think I need to. Deeps, our warrior, is AG and is performing the bubble skip. I played with this guy quite a bit, and you know, he does pull this off pretty swiftly and easily without any assistance. What he's going to be doing is taking Bubbles to the corner. We're going to be baiting the bubble burp from Bubbles, and then as soon as that frontal's on him, we are going to be going. I hit Tiger's Lust, and I don't hesitate at all as I'm into the next pack with a keg smash. I kick in the Electrocutioner, and I'm pulling in the Inspector and Electricianer here. Deeps gets double casted on the opener, and we do need to commit Battle Res to him here, which is super unlucky. I go in, I hit Leg Sweep, and now I'm trying to get stabilized for the Spark Slam and the pull. I immediately commit Fortifying Brew, and as well I'm in Weapons of Order right now, so I'm just making sure that I can sustain myself. This is not an easy pull for a tank, as you have to deal with frontals, the Spark Slam, and positioning and kicks from the Electricianers. You'll see here that I do get nabbed by a frontal, and now I'm rotating whatever I can to live this last Jumpstarter. I diffuse magic a little bit early, and that Spark Slam takes me really low. Luckily, I do end up managing to survive with a crafty last second Celestial Brew as I get stable, and our Shaman does hit that Spirit Link. I was worried that Spirit Link was actually going to kill me, as it did bring me low before the Spark Slam, but we do get stable and manage to kill off these Inspectors pretty easily. Remember, you can use things like Ring of Peace, as you'll see in that pull, to kind of get the Inspectors back grouped, Paralysis to Pseudo Stop, and Leg Sweep. This is another very hard pull, as it's pretty much going to mimic the last one. We're going to be fighting Inspectors here, a Jumpstarter, and 2 Electricians. I get aggro, I take one of the electrical bolts, and I'm just watching the kicks on the Electricianers where I can. I hit Dampen Harm, and I get double Fort Brew proc right in the opener, so right now I'm more than immortal, as you can see on the left hand side of my screen. I probably should have held the Dampen for the next pull, but I am okay, as Brewmaster has a very easy time dealing with these tank busters. However, I would still make sure that you're respecting them in the sense that you are pressing something for every Spark Slam if you can, or at bare minimum having a Purify and Expel Harm available to deal with the oncoming damage. I do have Diffuse Magic coming up in 3, and if I do Diffuse, remember I can also get rid and clear those debuffs from those mobs. Diffuse Magic does work as Dispel, and I can also be Dwarfing if I do get scared. Due to time, I have no time to spare, as we only have 5 minutes left in the key, and I'm pulling these Jumpstarters immediately. When you're fighting the double Jumpstarters at the end of the key on Brewmaster, as I don't have a Shadow Meld to skip them, I need to make sure that I'm using a defensive for each set of Jumpstarter slams and not just each slam. This means particularly that I open with Fort Brew, end with Diffuse Magic, and now I'm hoping on either a proc or a big Celestial Brew to handle each one of the slams. You'll see that Celestial Brew can handle a slam on its own, but remember, I'm still taking ticking damage from the Jumpstarters as well. So now I'm dealing with ticking damage from Jumpstarters, I'm dealing with the Spark Slam, and I'm dealing with the melees. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a hard pull, but it's one that you definitely have to respect, and it takes a little bit of deliberate tanking to make sure that you can get through it. I am following my regular rotation, I get a 4 Brew proc right at the end. I'm looking to see on that Vivify Celestial Brew to handle the last Spark Slam, and we've started the boss RP. This is a 4-minute boss, and I have to pull the boss immediately, but my Shaman is As soon as I see my Shaman get that drink, I'm going to be pulling the boss immediately and going straight in to make sure that our team has enough time to kill. I do make a mistake in the opener and hit Weapons of Order one global too early as I cap on Keg Smash. Fortunately, I do manage to get my 4 stack here of Weapons of Order up very quickly, and I'm able to start getting my single target rotation in. Remember, now my boss damage is exceptionally important as I only have limited time in this key. For each one of these kind of spark slams, again from this boss, you can kind of treat it the same way as you did the Jumpstarter trash. Alternate things like Dampen Harm, Diffuse Magic, and Fortifying Brew, and you should have a very easy time. One other trick to note as tank is try to do your best to reposition Geezle Gigazap to a position where if you're playing with melee, they can also easily clear their puddles. If they can clear their puddles easier, they're going to have more uptime on the boss, and as you can see, I hit Diffuse Magic onto that Spark Slam. The initial hit of Spark Slam is physical and the dot is magical, so you are going to be fully staggering the initial hits, and your Diffuse Magic is going to deal with the magic damage taken after from the dot. If you ever need to here, this is a great place where you can use that instant cast Vivify from Shadow Ban, or from your talents, and increased healing from Shadow Ban to kind of help top up your team. I'm not too focused on off healing this key as maybe I should be, as I felt like my Resto Shaman was pretty strong. I do hit Fortify and Brew for this slam, and I'm repositioning the boss into somewhere where I can clear easily and my melee DPS has uptime. I go ahead here and I ping my puddle to make sure that my melee DPS don't get too confused about where I'm going and where they need to go. I roll through my puddle here and I'm giving my melee as much uptime as humanly possible on this boss. I think on this Thunder Punch I do fuck up and I get knocked back into the puddle, which causes me almost to lose the key. I do immediately hit that Expel, which tops me to full. I'm purifying when I need to, feel like I'm a little dry, and remember again, available here, I do have Black Ox Brew. Tank busters happen infrequently enough in this boss fight where you should never feel like you're fully dry on Brew. Right now, I already have Diffuse Magic coming back up for the next tank buster, and we're about to be in Bloodlust. Not only do I have Diffuse, Dampen Harm just came back up, which means I should be okay for the rest of the fight. I Diffuse, I Celestial Brew, I Purify, and now I'm just back to hitting the boss with my Black Oak Kick Tiger's Bombs. I'm pinging my marker for my puddle, and I'm making sure we're in a position where the boss is cozy enough that I can get into and make sure that the boss is in a position for my melee DPS to clear. My warrior seems to have a pretty tough time clearing this boss, and he does end up, I think, sending CDs there. We do hold Lust for a very long time, and I think it's specifically for that Druid Incarn, so I think our Shaman's going to be Lusting now, which I think was kind of a bad idea. I think we should Lust a little bit earlier. Our DK has sent Unholy Frenzy, our Druid has sent Incarn, and we're hoping now that we have enough time in 40 seconds to finish the last 20% of the boss. I'm looking at our warrior, and I think he does get an Avatar send right at the very end of this boss, so we might be okay. All we need now is our team to survive this last set of Mega Zaps, and we're going to hit the boss. Remember, I have Fort Brutod available to make sure that in case we have any last second incidences, we're going to be more than fine. But right now, I'm not focused at all on living as much as I am on damage, and want to save that Fort Brew just to increase my health a little bit right at the very end. I'm fully committing to the boss here and not going to be kiting from the sparks, as 2 seconds, 1 second, I hit Touch of Death and the key is over. That key was absolutely insane, and I'm shocked that we timed it, but remember, this was on my Brewmaster in a group competition I've never played with before, and a new set of faces. This was kind of a fun key for just kind of going into a no-comms PUG, and I had a really fun time. I actually kind of vibed with it a lot. I'd kind of lost some passion there from playing Brew the past couple weeks, and I typed in my chat, sorry, I'm VDH brain. As you guys have probably seen, I post a lot of VDH content, but with that in mind, this is how I time my plus 17 Floodgates on my Shadowpan Brewmaster. If you feel like I missed anything, or have any questions regarding what I did in my roots, what I chose for my talents, or why I'm not playing, Master of Harmony, I can also answer that in my Discord or in the comments below. Feel free to drop by on Twitch or in my Discord if you want to join some of our conversations. I've been trying to stream pretty regularly, and kind of our community's blown up a lot, so I'm really happy and thankful for all the support, as this does keep the channel alive. This is turning from a hobby into a little bit more of a, passion of mine, and I'm really enjoying helping others with the specs they do play and putting out meaningful content for you to learn from. What would you guys like to see next? If there's anything that you would like to see specifically on Brew, or maybe it's even just a poll as opposed to a dungeon on how to do something on Brewmaster, feel free to drop in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.